Trig day 2. We're given a triangle. 30 degrees is one angle. We have a side that's 12 and a side marked X, and that's what we want to find. Before we start any trig problem, I hope that nearby you've got your trig definitions. We know that sine, cosine, and tangent start every trig problem here, so we might as well just write them down. If you have notes handy or something like this written down, it'll be useful. We know the sine is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. We know cosine is equal to the adjacent side over hypotenuse. And we know that tangent is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent side. How can that help us? We go back to our problem here. And just like any trig problem, you start by labeling the triangle. You find your starting point, which is going to tell you by the angle right here, 30 degrees, angle A. That means that's where you start. We think to ourselves, this is the hypotenuse, 12. This X is opposite from where I'm standing. And we notice there's no number marking or X or anything down here, so this side won't be used in the problem. We can still go ahead and label it adjacent, because you never know when we're going to need the adjacent side in a different problem. So how do we solve for that missing side X? We think to ourselves, what do I know? The hypotenuse. And what do I want to know? The opposite. And we look back and we think, okay, I circled opposite and hypotenuse. Which of these three, sine, cosine, or tangent, tells you about opposite and hypotenuse? It's sine. So we go over here and we write the sine is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. Now we're going to put in some numbers here, okay? What is sine? It's a ratio. Okay, it has to do with a starting point. So you're not just sine, you have to say the sine of 30 degrees. It's our starting point, right? So that's going to go with our trig function. Opposite, we see x. Hypotenuse, we see 12. So what are we looking at here? This kind of looks like an equation, except the sine of 30 or 30 degrees. You can put a little degree symbol there if you want. Doesn't really matter. But that's not a number. You can't take that 30 and multiply it times 12 or do anything with it. This is a ratio, the sine of 30 degrees. Where do we find this? You need a scientific calculator, or if you're looking at this on the computer, you can always just jump over to Google. I wonder if Google knows this. It seems to know everything. What if we just type in sine of 30 degrees? And look at that. Before I even press enter, it tells you that the sine of 30 degrees is 0.5. So we jump back to our problem, and we replace sine of 30 degrees with 0.5 is equal to x over 12. A little fraction question, but we know what to do with this, right? We've all been to algebra, and we know that you multiply these two numbers. 0.5 times 12 is 6. X is equal to 6. So that's our missing side. Problem done. Let's do it again. Let's do another one here. Now I did number 9. It's probably best if I just jump around and do a couple problems from the notes. It'll give you a good guide to what we're doing here. Next one, we see our triangle. We're given a 28-degree angle. We're given a 2 and an x right here. We happen to start down here. You may not always start with angle A. It might be angle B sometimes, but this is fine. There's you and your triangle. We label the hypotenuse. We label the adjacent side. The side next to me is x. And we label the opposite side too. If you're doing a trig problem, you got to start by labeling these three sides, and we're not going to get anywhere. So we look and we think to ourselves, what do we know? 2, that's the opposite. What do I want to know? X, that's adjacent. We think back to our trig functions. Hopefully they're still right where you can find them. Jump back here. Which of these three goes with opposite and adjacent? It's tangent. So we go back over here. We write our little definition. It's tangent is equal to opposite over adjacent. So let's see what we got. Tangent needs the angle. We're talking about tangent of some angle, so we write down tangent 28 is equal to the opposite opposite, which we know is 2, over the adjacent, which we know is x. I need to know the tangent of 28. Ask your calculator, or hey, I'll just jump to Google right here and ask this. Tangent of 28 degrees. What's it going to tell me? We get a much longer decimal this time. It's traditional to use 4 decimal places, so 0.5317. 0.5317. 0.5317 is equal to 2 over x. We're one step away from the answer. Do we multiply these two now? Well, I guess so. The little shortcut would be instead, when x is in the denominator, you divide 2 divided by whatever this number over here is. So we can just jump up here. It's going to be 2 over 0.5317. We ask our calculator, 2 divided by 0.5317, and we'll have our answer. I wonder if Google will use a calculator for me. 2 divided by 0.5317. Hey, there it is, 3.76. Usually you round our answer here to one decimal place, so 3.76 would round to 3.8. X is equal to 3.8. That's it. We're done.